Once upon a time, there was a student of Zen who shared an old Buddhist poem with his teacher. The poem said that the voices of the valley all come from one great tongue, and the lines of the hills are the pure body of Buddha. "Isn't that the truth?" the student said to his teacher. "It is a famous saying," the teacher replied, "but it is a real pity to say it out loud." It would be much better, of course, if we could mark this occasion with no talk at all. If I were acting like the ancient teachers of Zen, I should hit this microphone right now with my fan and simply walk away. And why would I do that? Because Zen is a way of life. It is a state of being that is impossible to trap inside any idea or concept. So, any ideas or words I will share with you this evening have one main goal. Their purpose is to show you the limits of words and of thinking. Now then, if I must try to say something about what Zen is, and I want to do this as a way of introduction, I must make it very clear. Zen, in its essence, is not a set of beliefs. There is nothing you're supposed to believe in. It is also not a philosophy in our normal sense. It is not a set of ideas, like an intellectual net you use to try and catch the fish of reality. But actually, the fish of reality is more like water. It always slips right through the net. And when you are in water, you know you have nothing to hold on to. This whole universe is just like that water. It is fluid, it does not last forever, and it is always changing. When you are thrown into the water after being used to living on dry land, you are not used to the idea of swimming. You try to stand on the water. You try to catch hold of it. And because you do that, you drown. The only way to survive in the water, and this is especially true for the troubled waters of modern life, where all certainties are gone and there is nothing solid to hang on to, where we all feel like we are falling apart, the only thing to do is to learn how to swim. And to swim, you have to relax. You have to let go. You have to give yourself to the water, and you have to know how to breathe in the right way. Then you find that the water holds you up. In a certain way, you even become the water itself. And so, in the same way, one might say, if one attempted to put Zen into any sort of concept, it simply comes down to this. In this universe, there is one great energy. We have no real name for it. People have tried different names for it, like God or Brahman or Tao. But in the West, the word God has so many strange feelings attached to it that most of us are bored with it. When people say God the Father Almighty, most people feel funny inside. This is why we like to hear new words. We like to hear about Tao, about Brahman, about Shingyo, and other strange names from the Far East. They do not carry the same associations of being too serious and having funny meanings from the past. And actually, some of these words that Buddhists use for the basic energy of the world really do not mean anything at all. The word tathata, which is translated as suchness, really means something more like that. It is based on the word tat, which in Sanskrit means that. In Sanskrit, it is said tat tvam asi, or that thou art. In modern American, that means you're it. But that is the first sound a baby makes when it comes into the world. The baby looks around and says that. And fathers feel proud and think it's saying dada, which means daddy. But according to Buddhist philosophy, all this universe is one tathata. That means 10,000 different things are all one suchness, and we are all one suchness. And that means suchness comes and goes like everything else, because this whole world is an on and off system. As the Chinese say, it's the yang and the yin. And because of this, it consists of now you see it, now you don't. Here you are, and here you aren't. Because that is the very nature of energy, to be like waves. And waves have crests and troughs. The problem is we are under a certain kind of sleepiness. We live under an illusion. We imagine that the trough, the low point, is going to overcome the wave, the high point. We think the yin, the dark principle, is going to overcome the yang, the light principle. We are afraid that off is finally going to triumph over on. And we scare ourselves by indulging in that illusion. We think, oh no, what if darkness did win out? Wouldn't that be terrible? And so we are constantly trembling and thinking that it may happen, because after all, isn't it odd that anything exists? It is most peculiar. It requires effort, it requires energy, and it would be so much easier for there to have been nothing at all. Therefore we think, well, since being takes so much effort, you always give up after a while and you sink back into death. But death is just the other face of energy. It is the rest. The state of not being anything around is what produces something around. It is just in the same way that you cannot have a solid without space, or space without a solid. When you wake up to this and realize that the more it changes, the more it's the same thing, as the French say, you understand that you are really a playing of this one energy. There is nothing else but that. It is you. But for you to be always, you would be an insufferable bore. And therefore it is arranged that you stop being you after a while and then come back as someone else altogether. And so when you find that out, you become full of energy and delight. As Blake said, energy is eternal delight. And you suddenly see through the whole wonderful sham of things. You realize, I am that. We will not put a name on it. You are that, and you cannot be anything else. So you are relieved of a fundamental terror. This does not mean that you are always going to be a great hero. It does not mean you will not jump when you hear a loud bang. It does not mean you will not worry occasionally, or that you will not lose your temper. It means, though, that deep, deep down within you, you will be able to be human. So it is then, if I may put it metaphorically, that the sage Chuang Tzu said the perfect man uses his mind as a mirror. It grasps nothing. It refuses nothing. It receives but does not keep. To put this very strictly into our modern way of speaking, this is to live without any hang-ups. That is to say, to be able to drift like a cloud and to flow like water. You can do this because you see that all life is a magnificent illusion. It is a playing of energy, and there is absolutely nothing at its core to be afraid of.